Here are my early game week 21 transfer plans in Fantasy Premier League. Now, before we show all my transfer plans going in to the next week, there is actually a round of EFL Cup fixtures in the semi-final. Arsenal play Newcastle and Tottenham play Liverpool. And as well as that, there's also FA Cup fixtures where, again, all the Premier League teams are in action. So Arsenal, Newcastle, Tottenham and Liverpool actually have 2 more games before game week 21, which is not ideal for making early transfers if you are planning on making them. So as I said, I wouldn't recommend making early transfers, but if you absolutely have to because the price rises and price falls, then fair enough, you might just have to take that gamble. But for me personally, in my team, I'm not going to be making any moves until these games have been played, just because there's 2 matches for some of these teams, and we own a lot of players from Liverpool, from Newcastle, from Arsenal, and you know, if they get an injury, then you're forced to make another transfer and potentially take hits down the line. So for me, I'm going to be holding off my transfers. As I say, it's something just to be aware of before you go making your transfers. So this is the team that I am currently set up with for the next game week in FPL Game Week 21. We have 3 transfers in the bank, and we also have 0.4 million as well. So we're not in a bad situation at all, I wouldn't say personally. But there is some players that I'm a bit sceptical about, and I'm looking to potentially move on. This will probably be the week where I do make quite a few transfers. So we'll start off as our goalkeeper, where I'm a little bit concerned, and that's David Raya. Now, the points haven't been too great for David Raya. He had a good start to the season. It's been alright since then, but for the price that he is, 5.6 million, I do just think there's better value goalkeepers. So the fixtures coming up for Arsenal, it's Spurs next, which I feel like Spurs are a very good side going forward. There's no doubt about it, even though defensively they definitely have question marks. But the fixtures coming up for Arsenal, they're average at best, I'd say. Like the next 4, Spurs, Aston Villa, Wolves, Man City. You can see Arsenal potentially conceding goals in them games. Not many goals, but they always seem to find a way to concede these days, Arsenal do. So David Raya is someone that I'm just not 100% sure, and I'm thinking of potentially replacing him, but he's kind of the least of the issues. The player that I would look to bring in for David Raya is probably going to be a Jordan Pickford. Now, his fixtures aren't the best in the next 3, really. Aston Villa, Spurs and Brighton, but he always gets saving points. So you can potentially get a clean sheet in there as well. Everton are pretty good at getting clean sheets generally. And, you know, against Bournemouth, he got 4 points, but he was on for an absolutely massive haul before Bournemouth scored that goal. He was on for like a 12 pointer or something ridiculous like that. And he is the second highest point scoring keeper. He was the highest point scoring keeper last season as well. So the transfer that I'm least likely to make would be this Raya transfer, but it's definitely on my radar potentially bringing in a Jordan Pickford or maybe Matt Sells, but I'm more leaning towards a Jordan Pickford as a goalkeeper transfer. Now, another one of my transfers would potentially be in midfield. Now, Amad Diallo has struggled in recent weeks, 3 blanks in a row. Man United have been absolutely tragic. No goals in the last 3 games. Amad, to be fair, has been United's best player, I'd say, since Amarin's taken over, especially going forward. But it just isn't happening for United. So they've got Liverpool next. He's on my bench right now. I'm recording this just before the Liverpool game kicks off. But the one thing about Amad, the one reason I'd want to keep him is that he's got Southampton. We saw what Brentford did to Southampton yesterday. Southampton literally just roll over and let any team absolutely ruin them. And Southampton is a really good fixture. So for Amad, it's a difficult one. I don't really want to get rid of him ahead of Southampton, but I probably will end up moving Amad on. As I say, I'll update you later in the week. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe, because I do daily FPL content. Hit a like on the video as well. But yeah, Amad Diallo, it's just not happened, and since I brought him in, he's blanked every single week, and I just think it's probably time for Amad to go, to be honest. And the other player that I'd be looking to move on is another player that's blanked, but this is 4 weeks in a row now, Nicholas Jackson. Now, again, I could easily keep Amad and Jackson. Like, Amad's playing against Southampton, Jackson's playing against Bournemouth. They're both decent enough fixtures, you'd say. You wouldn't be mad playing them, especially the Southampton game. And Jackson could very well score, and Amad could very well score. So it's not like absolute desperation to make these moves. It's more the players that I want to bring in instead of the players that I want to get rid of. But Jackson, a lot of people are starting to move him on now. A lot of people are fed up with him, have given up hope with him. He had another good chance against Crystal Palace and didn't take it. So very, very, very frustrating owning Jackson at the moment. He's been good for me ever since I've had him, but since in these last 4 weeks, I say it's just not happened for Nicholas Jackson at all. So those are the 2 players I'm looking to mostly get rid of, Amad Diallo and Nicholas Jackson. And the midfielder that I'll be looking to bring in would be Anthony Gordon, who is the man in form right now. I think it's 4 returns in a row for Anthony Gordon. And the fixtures coming up for Newcastle are just so good. Like, Wolves at home is a really good fixture. Bournemouth at home after that. Southampton away and Fulham at home. Even Man City away. The fixtures long-term for Newcastle are just so good. I've already got Mbuemo, luckily enough. So I just think the way forward for me is going for an Anthony Gordon and Mbuemo. Like, I think I'm kind of ahead of the curve. I think a lot of people are kind of looking to build their teams towards that after what happened this weekend. And for me to already have mbuemo, I think it would be a pretty big differential play to have mbuemo and Anthony Gordon in the same team. As I say, I think most people probably just have one of the two. And to have both, as I say, it could be a big differential. It really could be a big rank gainer. And as I say, I think it is ahead of the curve as in not a lot of people own them right now. And I think a lot of people are looking at Anthony Gordon and a lot of people, of course, looking at mbuemo after that 19-pointer. And as I say, the fixtures are just so good for Newcastle. But it is frustrating, as I said, to get rid of Ahmad ahead of Southampton. Then you also got to look at it longer term. I want Anthony Gordon. He's going to rise in price more. And Anthony Gordon has got not an equally good fixture, but it's a very good fixture Wolves at home is, even though Wolves have picked up recently under Vitor Pereira, but they do still concede goals, Wolves do. And as I say, Anthony Gordon is just on absolute red-hot form right now. And with the striker situation, obviously I said I was getting rid of Jackson. Now there's two players that I can potentially, looking at on my radar of bringing in for a Nicholas Jackson. Now, the first one being JOAO Wissa, obviously getting an 11-pointer against Southampton, and he's been very good over the course of the season so far. The one thing that puts me off of Brentford is 3 of the next 4, it is against Man City, Liverpool, Crystal Palace and Spurs. But saying that, it wouldn't surprise me if Wissa scored against Man City. Liverpool I wouldn't expect to return. But then in the other 2 games, Palace and Spurs, it wouldn't surprise me if he returned. Then beyond that, West Ham and Leicester. So you can actually look at it and say, it's not a bad fixture run for Brentford coming up. And a double of mbuemo and Wissa, I don't think I've ever done that in my FPL career. But it's something that actually is quite an exciting thing to potentially have. At 6.2 million, Vissa's great value. And as I say, Brentford are so good. Brentford are so good going forward and so good at home, especially in the next 2 games at home. I do quite like the look of JOAO Wissa, but the other player as well is quite tempting as well. And that player is JOAO Pedro. And if you're a fan of the TikTok, then you know that I call JOAO Pedro the FPL catfish. Because whenever nobody owns him, whenever he gets rid of him, he starts picking up points. Everybody got rid of him after that Brentford game. Then next game he gets 2 assists against Aston Villa, and then gets and that was a 9-pointer there. Another 9 points with a goal against Arsenal. And he's on penalties. It's like he just looks so good on paper. 5.7 million looks like just incredible value. As I said, on penalties, playing for a decent enough Brighton side who haven't been great in the last couple of months, but they're still a decent side overall. And JOAO Pedro is just a class player as well. Like, there's so many reasons to get him. He is 0.5 cheaper than Wissa as well, which is also something to definitely take into consideration. And the fixtures for Brighton are better than Brentford's, I'd say, overall. But I'd say that Brentford are a better team going forward than Brighton at the moment. But also JOAO Pedro is actually better against the big opposition. He always seems to pick up points in games that you don't expect him to. Then when you get a game like Ipswich away, which on paper looks very good, but despite that, I'm watching the Ipswich game right now, and Ipswich currently 1-0 up, and Ipswich also winning last week. Ipswich have been much improved in the last few weeks, so maybe it's not an easy fixture by the looks of it. And then Man United away is a great fixture. Everton at home, nice. Nottingham Forest away is alright. Chelsea and then Southampton. Overall, it's a nice run for Brighton, and you wouldn't be surprised if JOAO Pedro does pick up some points. But then the second everybody owns him, as I say, that's when he just turns to absolute rubbish. So those are the current transfer plans. As I say, then the midfield would then be Anthony Gordon, Mo Salah, Cole Palmer, and mbuemo and Rodgers. And I think that midfield just looks so good going into the next week. And then the strikers for starting would be JOAO Pedro with Alexander Isak. I just think that team would look so good then. And it's pretty much like a team that you'd wildcard to anyway. Like, I wouldn't change a massive amount. Say I was on a wildcard, I wouldn't change a huge amount of that team. So let me know what you think of those transfers, and let me know your transfer plans in the comment section down below. Any questions, and I will get back to you. Thank you very much for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.